Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about chip wars. So let's dive right into it. Now you have to understand, at this point in time, this is what we classify as backbone of modern technology. This is a title that keeps changing. For example, if you go one few generation back, it was oil, the black gold. Go few generation back, it was agricultural land or metals. So it's always like that. Like things keep progressing and we reach a point where current thing becomes the most important thing. It's always like that. Now at this point in time, this technology, basically the ICs that we don't think too much about, it's as close to black, dark arts and as close to black magic as we can ever get. Like think about this way, we have reached a point where we just have a black box and it can think using electricity. Like we reached there, like we are there, bro. We don't even think about it, that there is a device in your stabilizer, in your washing machine that is calculating things, and it's just like, okay, too much water, too little water, or too much voltage. It's like it's doing all that calculation and you don't even think about it. It's freaking black magic. It even looks black. So it's mind-boggling. Now, at this point in time, every Tom, Dick and Harry is racing on it. It's like they're going all out. Everybody who can develop this, they are working their ass off. There is no breaks. There is no holiday. They are just going 24/7 into 365. And the mastery is basically the final goal. Basically, you want to become better. And not having it can break your country. For example, you can literally look like North Korea. You look it from a satellite at night, you're like, damn. Like there is a capital, 1 or 2 light spots, the end. Like Pakistan has more electricity than that. So fundamentally, having it and not having it, like if you want to compare the war power of these two powerhouses, would be bow and arrow versus ICBMs and cruise missiles. That's how far different. Like the country who can develop this puppies, this black magic, and has true mastery over it is god tier powerful. God tier. Like there is not even a joke. Like it is the backbone of everything. So what was this war? Well, this is current Cold War. Back in the days, Cold War was between two ideologies, capitalism and basically communism, and that happened. USSR and Soviet Union was the letterheads of those ideologies, and this is the same thing. Now, who are the two parties here? Well, first party is Western Bloc. India is not included. India is the neutral party at this point in time. We are observing both parties, and then there is dictatorship bloc, meaning dictators. That again on paper, like even this guy has election. Like what kind of weed he's on? It's like, why do you even have election? Nobody is even allowed to stand against him. He has election. It's like, why are you wasting people's time? So that's one of those things. Now, how the heck West got itself in this position? Well, reality was the businesses, basically not the companies, but the MNCs, multinational corporations. They sold their own goddamn country, be it South Korea, be it USA. They sold their own countries for profit. And that creates a very, very serious problem. Dictators got the access to black magic, meaning what would be the current status of China if businesses like Motorola, that was apparently the first one that gave them the access to black magic, or like Russia's situation, if there was like complete sanctions, like we're not going to give you any access to modern technology. It's like, that's a completely different country. Like these country won't even be something that is on the radar. It's like, bro, who cares? It's almost like nothing matters. So dictatorship got access to the black magic and they started to take things for granted. And for example, this guy is like, what if I take Crimea? What if I take the whole Ukraine? It's like, bro, getting bit out of hand here. Same with China. It's like the things that they are doing. Like I'm not against Chinese people. I'm against CCP. Let me be very clear about that. Things that they are doing will make World War II look like, bro, there are some people throwing tantrums around. That's how bad it is. Like, whoa, kind of bad. And let's not even talk about this idiot. It's like, that's very, very bad. Now, yes, businessmen did sold their country, but thankfully, enough people in Western blocs, again, be it Germany, be it UK, be it USA, enough patriotic people are there that they're like, whoa, we gotta wake up. We gotta fix our stuff. So they woke up and they said, enough. The end. Like this stops now. 2020 was the, final match, quote unquote. So first thing you will think, okay, why can't these companies can just reverse engineer? Meaning they can afford to buy a GPU, let's say NVIDIA GPU or Intel CPU or AMD CPU and just ship it to their country and reverse engineer it. That's the first thing you will think. Well, here's the deal. No amount of money and time will allow you to undo this black magic. That's the whole point. It's flat out black magic. Even if you have ludicrously large amount of time, idiotically large amount of bank balance, you still can't do it, flat out. And all the successful company They're not stopping, meaning NVIDIA is like, oh, I built this, and they're not like, okay, I'm going to stop, I'm going to take a chill pill. No, they're working their ass off. Like if you look at any launch events, basically graph specifically done for investors, you will always see, oh, we are releasing this GPU, like let's have 4000 series. They're like 5000 is under construction, 6000 is under planning, 7000 is we are working on the principles of it. That's how far advanced they are. Like you look at Arc GPU, same thing. It's like, oh, we are launching this, we are like, it's like always that far out. So nobody is stopping. And here's the deal. Modern chips, basically things like this nature is not human made anymore. For example, back in 1958, so basically Apollo era, this was how ICUs were made. It was like literally drawn by a person. Human hand was doing it. Nowadays, we crossed that threshold. We crossed that threshold as early as like 1990s. Like we no longer in a position where any human can design this. You can take whole university full of people, you can still not design it by hand. Flat out, it cannot be done. So how the heck we build it? Like, of course, alien is not coming down. So how do we do it is basically we have groups of people who are specialists on their task, meaning they will be like, bro, I'm the shift register guy. Bro, I'm the cache guy. I'm the IO guy. Like these should be people who are working on a groups. Groups could be as little as like 3 to 5 people or as high as like 50 to 60 people. These group will create algorithms for their self. Basically, how do you design a cache? Our algorithm will teach you for that. And they put all their intelligence into that algorithm. That algorithm builds you the core architecture. Basically, what you say cores, RTX core, whatever have you, that's the core. Then that goes into smart interconnect, meaning imagine it this way. This is the old largest CPU. At this point in time, there are more powerful CPU. This has 54 billion transistor. Each transistor have 3 legs. Imagine how many connections you need to make in that. Try to doing the math. Try. I dare you. How the heck you gonna do that? You simply can't. So that creates the smart interconnect algorithm. And again, many companies, fabrication labs, they work their ass off to develop that algorithm. And it's like, okay, how the heck you gonna do it? And be mindful, the small scale that we are talking about, it's not this big anymore. We are talking about something that is so small that if they do not do it properly, electrons can jump from each to other. It's like, oh, signal is going, it's getting interference. Why? Because there is another conductor that is too close to each. Like we are talking about electron level, where it's like electron is like, lol. Electron can just jump. You have to figure all those things out. So interconnects happen, then you test it. You just hope things work. If you ever notice how the heck modern CPUs have like so many random vulnerabilities that are detected later, it's like that's why humans are not designing it. So testing is fundamentally, that's the only way you can. It's like you built everything, you test it, does it work? Does it clear the bar good enough? Yeah, sell it. That's it. That's the final product. Again, I have simplified it, but let this be very clear. No matter how much money you have, unless you have all the steps properly taken care of, you cannot replicate a modern CPU. And even if you try to reverse engineer, like let's say you went all in on it, it's like I'm gonna reverse engineer it. By the time you have actually cracked it, it would be super outdated. For example, this is the biggest CPU in the planet at this point in time. It has 2.6 trillion transistors. It's like this big. And I mean the CPU, not the motherboard. CPU is this big. It has like freaking how many cores? 8,50,000 cores. Yeah, it's a whole silicon wafer. I think they cannot make it bigger because there is no wafer that is big enough like that silicon wafer. Of course, many of them are broken. They're like, how the heck it works? Again, they built the algorithm in such a way that if, of course, there will be defects. And if this whole thing is a one disk, there will be defects. So they're designed in such a way that it can work around it. So let's say there is a defect in this core. It's like, no problem, bypass it. Imagine 2.6 trillion transistor. How much connection you have to do? Like, think about that way. Like, we are here, we have this, but it's not something that even if somebody gave you, it's like if you go to NVIDIA, it's like, bro, I'm going to reverse you. First, they're going to bitch slap you with a shoe, and then they're going to give you their highest end GPU just to smite you. It's just like, try to replicate it. Try replicate, and by the time you would have replicated it, then they're like, good, sell it in schools, good toy for school. That's how long it will take. Like if you have an electron microscope, if you try to scan all of this, it could take you years. Like electron microscope is very small details, awesome, but it's a very small detail. Yeah, you have to keep doing it. It's a very long time. That's why it cannot be done. Like this era, you could have replicated it. The moment we went into this, the moment we are using algorithms to develop the tools, yeah, it's no longer. And even if you got your hands on the algorithm, you still can't, because you do not know how the heck that algorithm is working with the smart interconnect algorithm. Completely different people. And not to mention the final tool of getting the software design to actual stuff put somewhere. Yeah, difficult. So that's why reverse engineering is not the thing. Like modern ones, you simply cannot reverse engineer, not in enough time. Then we come to the China. China, everybody is like, who does not understand the sort of black magic? The things, the China is the world's factory, and that is functionally true. Functionally, it is true that almost everything that you handle or hold is made in China. However, they're not that great at engineering. They are great at reverse engineering, meaning they are not going to develop Prusa. They're going to develop a cheap clone of it known as Ender 3. So what's the difference? Well, here's the Prusa is very expensive, Ender 3 is cheap. Ender 3 is good enough, Prusa is bit better, not too much better. And again, for most people, it's like Ender 3 is better. One is like around $200-300, another is $700 to $800. So you're like, why the heck? Prusa sells. Prusa has software. That's the thing that they had developed. They figured out like, and what's Enders? That's software itself, copy paste. So they're great at reverse engineering, but not at like, high level things. What does high level mean? High tech, meaning if you go to China, it's like, hey, I want you to develop a phone. You will feel like they are building everything for you, but they will not. So if you're like, hey, iPhone, what does that mean? That simply means they're going to call up. It's like someone in South Korea is like, can you send us the basically OLED panels? Okay, awesome. Then they're going to call up somewhere in Taiwan. It's like, can you send us the microchips? Awesome. And then they're going to do everything else. So can they develop PCB? Absolutely. Can they develop the capacitor, resistor, transistor, chokes, things of that nature? Basically big things? Yeah, easily. What about the black magic that goes into that? No. Flat out no. Flat out no. They cannot even try. So this is one of those things. They are 100% dependent on West IP. And I do not mean just USA. I mean other countries also. They have that IP, that's it. That if they literally pulled back their IP support, the end. The end. Like it's not even an attempt. It's the end. And they also woke up basically in his second term. I think at this point in time, he may be in fourth term. In second term, he kind of woke up to that. It's like, wait a minute, I do all this hulululu, and at the end of the day, all I'm is like assembler. Like that's all they do. It's like IP design is still made in West, and Taiwan still mass manufactures it, and then ships it to China. So meaning if they stop the shipping, they did. So he invested money like there is no tomorrow, like GG amounts of money, as in like trillions of dollars kind of money. And what happened? Well, same thing that happens to every dictator. Every dictator forgets that people below them are also corrupt. Corruption. So yeah, the biggest corruption scandals are so Hillary's. And that's why they keep trying to take over Taiwan. They can't. If they actually try to do that, not to mention all the IPs still would be pulled back. It's not like Taiwan is the only company. There are other companies also, and other companies would be like, whoa. Like they cannot directly go to India and it's like, bro, I want that semiconductor. It's like, no, bro. No. They cannot go to USA. It's like, bro, really don't come here. Like really don't try to. So it's one of those things that it looks on paper that they have everything, but in real life they don't. And many times they are doing what we call electronic recycling, and what they are actually doing is basically pulling that chips off. That's how difficult it is. Have they reverse engineered many things? Yes, like ARM processors that are used in your washing machines, microwaves, those things they have. But again, these are ancient technology compared to ARM's current holding. That's like, bro, we had this in 1993. You just made a cheaper copy-paste version of it now. Maybe with some better electronics, maybe some more resilient, some updates, but nowhere near like, current flagship technology. So that's the reality of it. And so their current best technology at best is 2015's technology. At best, I'm being hyper optimistic. And the company that actually managed to deliver that, that's like, yeah, the IP tray. The reason we can develop this is like we have IP holdings from some Western companies. So it's like, they will build a 4080 and the performance would be like 1030. Video down below. It's like from Linus Tech Tips. He did that. So do not think like, oh, China. It's like, no, they're just assembly service. So how the heck this happens? We are talking about multiple countries, not talking about one country. Like every Europe, Western countries have something going for it. Like something, something about some Western country. Like why the heck you don't hear things about Russia? Why the heck you don't hear things about like positive things about China? Like the most popular Chinese thing that people know is like Chinese product and TikTok. Like why the heck there is no like, German engineering, Swiss precision, things of this nature. Why the heck they don't have that? Well, because of the toxin. Whenever you have dictatorship, it's fundamentally anti to individual success. For example, how the heck TSMC, basically that ASMR company became such a big deal? Well, they were very wise. They were learning from each other. They were like, hey, we are using lens. Back in that day, Japan was the granddaddy of everything. They had Nikon and Canon. And these two were like, we are the only two guys. Like nobody else even knows how to make microprocessor. We are the only guys. So how this tiny company did that? They went to Philips. Philips is like, bro, we gotta support it. Like, okay, Philips supported it. Then they were like, okay, we are developing it. And they figured out the mathematics was kind of clear. It's like you started developing it, you figure it out. Like if I'm using this infrared lasers, this is how it's gonna operate. But if I have to make it smaller, of course, the nanometer is a known factor. So they figured out very early on that they gotta move into ultraviolet or extreme ultraviolet. So they figured it out very early on. It's a mathematical thing. You can figure it out. So once they figured it out, they're like, okay, how the heck are we gonna do it? Again, lens daddies, they were Canon and Nikon. They were awesome with that. But here's the problem. How the heck you use lens on ultraviolet? You can't. Light does not work that way. So they're like, okay, who else is the next best thing? Zeiss. Why? Zeiss makes telescope mirrors. So they knew how to make mirror, and mirror does work on ultraviolet. So that's how they figured it out. And Japan poofed, and TSMC is like, I'm the daddy. And ASMR is like, bro, I'm the granddaddy of all. So how the heck that happened? Again, because multiple people were working, from basically Zeiss to Philips to every other company, and not to mention the actual laser development, the processing, the billions of dollars. That dollars came from Intel, that dollars came from USA, and that's why USA gets to say what happens to that. All those things happen. When you are in a dictatorship, that cannot happen. Fundamentally, it cannot happen. And there are only few competent people. Like, does not matter how big of your country is. For example, USA is the third largest country, India is the first largest, China is the second largest. Here's the deal. Even if you take these three countries, or just two, India and China, and that gives you a roughly 3 billion people, how many people are competent enough to reach that level? Very few. Like, that's a fact of reality. Very few people are competent to that level. Very few, like literally few. You can count them. It's like 1, 2, 3. That's how few people are who can write the actual algorithms that go into that. Very few people. Now, if you have a toxic environment, basically your home country is toxic, the first thing you do is like spend time running rather than running the country. So instead of building, you are running. If you are born here, like, are there any smart people born here? Absolutely, absolutely. They have a good enough population, so some people would be smart. But what's the first thing they do? Yeet out of there. Same happened in Pakistan. So it's one of those things that you have to truly look at. And quality, basically things that allow you to build this sort of infrastructure, they are multi-generational thing. Basically, why the heck Japan has like so many companies that are successful? Again, quality. They spent years on it. Why the heck German engineering still, respected? Like, it's a Dutch company that's like, kicking ass, taking names like this. No? Engineering, years of it, generations of it. It's not something like, lol. Like, Chinese people, ironically, they had this. Basically, before CCP destroyed them, they had a culture, they had a philosophy of like not working for today, they're working for 100 years ahead. Like, they literally had ecosystem. Basically, cultural philosophy was like, dude, don't just plan for today, plan for 10 steps ahead. And they were awesome. That's how they developed paper so early on. That's why they had currency. Like, many things they got very right very early on. But then CCP happened, the end. So you have to how can just any Tom, Dick and Harry company, Iran cannot just make it? They can try, but they don't have that quality infrastructure, that quality ecosystem where people's mindset are like, hey, I'm not just working for me, I'm working for my future self and my grandchildren's. That matters. It takes time, multiple generations to do. And not playing a fair game. For example, they're like, what if I directly exploit it? Here's the deal. That looks awesome. That gives you instant gratification. That gives you instant win also. But it only makes you weaker. For example, you are just reverse engineering everything. You're like, oh, they're making a new SoC. I'm just going to Control C, Control V. Here's the deal. They will know that you are doing it. And they will work their ass off to beat you. And once upon a point, they will reach, you will not be able to copy it. And that point in time, you have nothing. You can't even fall back to your own knowledge because there is none. You're like, oh, I'll just make my, okay, I don't even know. Like, you, at that point in time, you'll hope that West launches an open architecture known as ISA's RISC-V architecture. And then you can just like hope to build something out of it. Flat out, you cannot. That's why reverse engineering looks awesome. It's not a car era anymore, where it's like you built a car, you built an engine, and it's going to be same for like 20, 30 years. It's not that. Every 2 years, bam, 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 new things are happening. Good luck trying to copy that. And like, more of the steel you feel powerful, but it's not a good strategy long term. Another thing is, like, many times people are like, oh, Iran developed so much with the sanction. Not really. And you have to understand, I had the luxury of talking to a person who actually worked in aeronautics, whose job was to test military hardware, as in like the electronic side of it, just the PCB and all that jazz. I did not even knew they use electronics that are like freaking 18-layer PCBs. But it's one of those things. Military techs are always outdated. Like, his testing phase is like, things come to him and he's like, okay, I'm going to test this puppy. That's 18 months. Like, just to test it. So by default, any planes that you see, like there is a plane, they are putting it, it's like, it could be like 4 or 5 years behind schedule. Like, compared to modern technology, it would be 4 or 5 years. Then why the heck they do it? Well, they have to do it for trustworthiness and resiliency. Meaning, can Iran literally salvage chips from consumer market that is not heavily regulated? Yes. Can they build something that looks like a proper military grade technology? Absolutely. Would it be better? In some ways, of course. But again, some modernness happen. Would it be trustworthy or resilient? Hell no. Meaning, if NATO got attacked by those drone swarms, they're like, hey, GPS bro, come on bro, just block it. They could just do that. Again, because consumer chips are not designed to handle that. Military chips are designed for that. So you could have like 5 nanometer chip. They will never put that on a satellite. Not to mention radiation will fry it, and they have to put like gates that are huge, like 200 nanometers, 400 nanometers. They are still used in chips, especially if they have to make sure high radiation environment. So it's one of those things that it may look like, oh, they are just bypassing it, they are succeeding. Not really. And imagine what they are doing right now. You are competing with what they had years ago. Imagine what they have right now. That's why, like, playing fair is the only way to win. If you try to, like, I'm gonna cheat, short term, you're gonna win. Long term, you're dead. So that's the toxic aspect. Like, I have nuclear. It's like, dude, you have ancient technologies, and the Soviet Union's kind of ICBM. It's like, you don't have electricity, and it's like, I have ICBMs. And that's how you know people are like stupid. It's like, if they are selling, I have nukes, I have nukes, I have nukes, that means you have nothing else. Like, if Russia is like, I have nukes, I have nukes, I have nukes, that means you have nothing else. Same thing with this. It's like, imagine you removed nukes. How many minutes he will last? Nothing. Nothing. It's like, poof. Same with Pakistan. It's like, I have nukes, I have nukes. It's like, no. If you have nukes, you never talk about it. It's like, it's one of those things. Hey, I just have it, just have it. Like, I can bitch slap you with 10 other ways. I don't need nukes. Like, nukes are like worst case scenario. I have 10 other ways to bitch slap you. If you have nothing, I'm gonna launch nuke. It's like, imagine what will happen if you actually launched it. What after then? So it's one of those things that you have to know. This sort of toxic ecosystem always backfires on its civilians. So this was my presentation on the chip cold war that is going on at this point in time. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.